Hello and welcome to the Boss It podcast with Mark Edwards and Michael Humblet. This podcast is released every week and is an over-the-shoulder look of a frank and candid discussion between two experienced software executives, providing you with useful tips, techniques and the latest concepts to help you grow your software business in the fast-paced digital age. So let's get into it. Here is Mark Edwards and Michael Humblet.
So this is Boss It podcast, an over-the-shoulder look between Michael Humblet and myself, Mark Edwards. Michael, hopefully you can hear me and we can hear you well. How's reception at your end?
I have a bit of an echo in the background, but I'm in an office with a customer. That's how it goes, Mark. Yeah. We keep working, keep pushing the boundaries, and I'm happy to speak to you again. And if I can kick in a door, because I just came out of a meeting, and this is something really typical that happens, and I'm sure you had the same, is you have this really good high-end quality sales guy. It's a guy this time.
Yes.
And it took him a while to get to a prospect. He just done the prospect meeting, and in his mind, he's done. So he got the endorphins of a good meeting. It's been tough to get there. He had a good meeting. And then I asked him, I said, so what's the conclusion? I need to send them a quote. Okay. Did you send them a quote? No, not yet. I didn't have time. Okay. How long ago was the meeting? 1 week. I said, man, you cannot do this. When when you get their attention, they're excited, you need to get that quote over there within 24 hours.
So that really is fresh in your mind. You've literally just come out from a meeting. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. And very responsive.
I see this behavior everywhere, and it's a very classic behavior. It's because it's been tough to get to the meeting and it's been a lot of work. So once they have the meeting, the endorphins, like I just mentioned, they're happy, and in their mind they're done. But it's not done until the bloody quote is at the customer. So here is a trick, Mark. Here is a trick.
Yeah.
The trick is, it's always hard. I mean, the reason why they don't start on the quote, it's because the customer probably wants something custom, and it's a lot of work, and you need to digest and you need to process. The trick is, find somebody else to start with it. Find an inside sales, find a sales operation, somebody else that can already send you a quote that's done for 50, 60%. Because it's 10 times faster to finish something and to tune something than to start from scratch.
Oh, I see. When you were saying somebody else within the organization, you weren't, or were you? Were you suggesting that maybe when it comes to sending a quotation out, there's somebody else within the business, not the salesperson, who's got that responsibility, or are you saying both?
Let me rephrase it a bit.
Yes.
What I mean is that I think that the salesperson is fundamentally responsible for the account, meaning he or she needs to send the quote, get the price, validate all of that, right? So the person needs to know what's in the quote. That's one. Two, making quotes can be hard and difficult. So I want somebody else in the organization, let's say on a lower salary, which is a more administrative task because it's just a process thing that can already start filling in the gaps and already producing a document where the sales just needs to check some numbers. I used to work at a company called Kofax. You do know them, Mark?
Yes, definitely.
And I used to have these 5-6 sales guys running around, and I had pre-sales, and then it was always hard because they had a very long, complex price list. So what I did at a certain stage is I hired a lady in this case. I hired a lady, and her only job was to do two things. One, she needed to follow up on everything that's maintenance. And two, I wanted her to help to start preparing those quotes so I didn't lose momentum. And that one single lady, she did 1.2 million euro in a year.
Oh.
I mean, 75% was maintenance, which is, cost of acquisition, all of that. It's fantastic in a margin point of view. But also she sped up all the other projects. And it wasn't expensive. It's the salespeople that are expensive. So you want to make sure that they keep momentum, they keep accelerating, and you can push the button on the pressure, but not on the operational side.
Do you think that this is also a question about the personality types that you have maybe in a sales role?
Well,
and where their leanings are, because
exactly.
they're more they're more leaning towards, let's go and have a meeting, let's go and have a conversation with somebody, than they are, let me sit behind my office all day and put together proposals. Yeah.
You hit the nail, because who has this behavior? Now comes the interesting part. For me, typically, it's like a typical hunter profile that's extremely social, really good in networking, that wants to be out, that wants to talk. They just don't like the structure. And they tell me, Michael, I never feel in CRM. And you're right. You don't need CRM to sell, but you need CRM to scale, to grow. So what I do is I would do something else. Actually, I stopped fighting with these people, because I was fighting for 18 years with this type of sales role. They're really good. They can bring you a lot of money, but they're so hard to catch. So the thing I do now is I say, okay, listen to me. So you don't want to do this, you don't want to do that. Okay, I can live with it on one single condition. If I free up that administration time, you always need to do a certain percentage, right? I'm going to free up more of your time, but I want you to have 1 to 2 more meetings per week, because I freed up your time.
Yes.
So I make it a trade.
And then getting a payback on it.
Yeah. In the beginning, they say, yeah, they do it. And then after 4 or 5 weeks, they kind of forget it. And then I just pull the plug for a while. And then I let them struggle for 2-3 weeks. These personalities need to feel the pain. If they feel the pain, I put it back. And then it works really well. But they will challenge you. It's just their nature.
Yes, I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, you also mentioned there about CRM, which is another pet frustration for me, because I speak to so many organizations. One of the questions that I'm looking for, probably at a sort of a, once we're actually engaged with an organization, is around the systems and processes on the sales side, because you'd be amazed at how many organizations I see that they're vulnerable because their salespeople, if they walk out the door, they walk out with the relationship, or they walk out with all of the knowledge. But there is a lot of frustration around CRM. And I think in many respects, and I've experienced this myself within Boss Equity, I think we have had over the years 7, 8 different CRM systems. None of them have been that advantageous to us in some respects. Some have just been very costly and have wasted time. And I think there is a change happening, that CRM is becoming a marketing CRM. It's becoming more of a technology backbone. But I think the key thing in the respect when you're talking about salespeople is salespeople have always tended to look at CRM as an administration task that doesn't really provide them with any benefit. And
unless the CRM. So my biggest comment to that is, I agree. I mean, there are about 2,000 CRM systems in the world at this moment, and I see a lot of them. And I have the CEOs of CRM systems in my sales acceleration show from time to time, so we talk about it.
Yeah.
I fundamentally believe that a CRM needs to work for you. So that's problem number 1.
Yes.
Problem number 2 you need to fix is that most CRMs are seller oriented, while they should be buyer process oriented, because a buyer does different things than we as a company do.
What do you mean by that? Explain that to me.
So the way people buy changed dramatically over the years. And we all know that, and there is a statistic that 57% of the buyer already knows what he wants before he talks to you, right? Yes. So what happens is, if you look at the steps very simplistically, there is an awareness phase where somebody thinks, I have a problem. Then you get to an educational phase where you think you're going to ask people how to do it. You're going to search online. You're going to go to YouTube. And then you make the selection stage, and then you basically roll it out. Now, what has changed over the years is that people it's not a linear process. They go from education to selection, back to education to selection. And because they don't like stuff, they change. It's easy to change. And they keep ping-ponging there. And the big magical line is sitting there saying that if they're in the educational phase, you should not sell. If you go across to the selection phase, you give the buying signals, you should sell. Now, most CRMs are not built like that. They are very linear, they're very sequential, while you need a CRM that actually can handle this back and forth. And that is one of the things that you don't see a lot. And 2, one of the things that I really like, and I'll give you an example, there are some CRMs doing this, that is, imagine I send out an email. So I make my prospect list. this is my wish list. Yeah? 0 value. This is my wish list. So if guys put in a value there, you have a problem, right? That's another story. So I have my wish list. I start phoning, mailing. I start reaching out. At a certain stage, one of these prospects comes back. So qualified deal. Then I send at a certain stage, I send a quote or I send an amount. Now, some of these CRM systems, they keep track of these emails and calls. They record the calls. They know if the other side has opened, if it has been forwarded. So they keep all the analytics. And at a certain stage, you send a quote. So the CRM system knows the value. Imagine the person suddenly, out of nowhere, mails. Typically, sales, what do is they have their day, they're running around. When this email comes, they get this, I call it passive failure anxiety of, I don't know how you translate that, where you like, yeah, I'm not going to answer now. I'm not going to open it immediately because it might be bad news. I know a lot of salespeople.
I see. Right? Yes.
So you're kind of, so what does this CRM do? It knows it's a hot prospect. It knows you've sent a big quote. So what's going to happen is the email is going to come in. He's going to take over your inbox. He's going to empty it and he's just going to have that one email sitting there. I've seen a CRM do that. Like it prioritizes the inbox of your sales guys. I can tell you, there is no escape to that.
I love that.
Yeah. So this kind of technology is out there. It exists. It is, and funnily enough, it's not expensive. But again, and that is where when you implement this stuff, it sounds cool, but it has a lot of dramatic consequences if you do it wrong. So you really need to know the buying process, and that's where it starts. Yeah? You need to define that, and you need to do that properly. And that, I think that's where a lot of frustration you have come from. I think you, in some of the CRMs you've had, you're like 2-3 steps ahead of the system, and that's not good. That's why you don't like it after a while. It should be in front of you. It should be smarter than you.
Yes, I think, you're talking about the buyer's journey, and I've experienced being a buyer where I can tell that the salesman's under pressure, he's being monitored or he's needing to reach his target, and he's pushing you through that process far faster than you want to go, and probably you need to go.
Yeah.
And I'm looking as a buyer who genuinely I'm looking to make a decision, but his anxiety or that pressure is pushing me away.
Mark, the classic one. You must have gotten emails that say, "Hey, Mark, I would really want to close this deal because I'm low on my target."
Yes,
it's a classic one.
Yes.
If I see that from a sales
towards
guy,
the end of the quarter,
I hate that. I said you just devaluated your offer because you gave me power. You should never give me power because I will take it.
Well, there's a very well-known software company, and I won't mention their name, but you'll probably guess who it is. Who it's known by the reseller channel that coming towards the end of the quarter, they're typically, the salespeople are going to get on the phone and they're going to be talking to their reseller channel looking for deals, and they will offer a discount. And the resellers, what they tend to do is they delay their orders until it comes towards the end of the quarter, because more often than not, they can get a big discount. They're actually harming themselves in doing that.
Exactly.
And it's behavior that they've run for years.
Exactly. I was a few weeks ago in a SaaS company selling software, and I can't give too much detail because they will know who they are. And I was talking to the sales guys, and they were laughing and joking, and they were saying, "Oh, end of quarter's coming. Oh yeah, there's always going to be some extra." And they were sandbagging the deals like crazy.
Yes.
If I feel that, if I smell that, that means that the company is actually rewarding them in the wrong way.
It is. It's creating the wrong behavior. Yeah, that's right. They're creating the wrong reward that creates the wrong type of behavior, both from their sales staff and probably from their customer and their resellers.
Yeah.
And it sounds obvious, but it happens. You would say it's common sense. That's not happening, but it does. I've seen it time and time again.
Yeah, and it's easier because VP of sales gets under pressure. Let's do a quick action. Let's do something, and suddenly we see the impact of there are some more deals. So it's working. So it's like a loop. It enforces itself.
One of the other things that you mentioned was about endorphins, and I interpret that in my own way. We used to have this phrase about, they've got their happy goggles on for salespeople, and the test of it was, when was the last time you had a bad meeting? Because every meeting that they have, they come out, that was a great meeting. and you start to ask the question, why was it a good meeting? Have you experienced that a lot? How do you handle that?
Yeah, yeah, and the other thing that you have is you have that exactly what you just said, and the other one is if you do forecast, you always have this profile of people that actually have a really shitty pipeline, but when you talk to them, the 2 days before the meeting, all this fantastic, amazing stuff happened.
Yes.
That's another one, right? That's the same profile of the good meeting.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah. And that is why, Mark, you should split up your sales process. Have different people doing different parts of the sales process with a handover. And now comes an interesting trick that I knew it, but I've never seen it live. So this company, what they've done is they sell, it's not an expensive, but it's a software, it's a SaaS. So what they do is they have somebody doing the prospecting, they have somebody that does then the first call or the first demo, and then it goes over to the sales guy. So they have like 2-3 steps in there. And what they do is they explain to the potential customer the structure of what's going to happen. So they're going to say, hey, thank you for calling. Today we're going to discuss and then they do the speech, 20 minutes. It's very short and sweet, 20 minutes. And they say at the end, okay, next steps are Then they go to the next step. A customer a few days later gets called. Last time we discussed, and they kind of keep repeating that structure. And what I've seen is that structure gives or creates peace of mind for companies because you feel like they know what they're doing. They have a framework or a blueprint or whatever you want to call it. And I calm down. And that's one of the biggest mistakes that startups and scale-ups make towards large companies. They are chaotic by nature, and that's why they go fast. But they need to give this structure as a peace of mind to the large companies too, because it creates trust.
Yes. That structure, creating trust in the process, that makes a lot of sense. I can understand that.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you sell, look at what you do. You do M&A at yes, you sell software companies. It's all about trust and structure, I think.
Yes, and I think in the early days, we didn't have that framework and the structure. And although there were organizations that knew us, and you build up a relationship with them over time, and they knew that we were, we specialized in this area, when we actually came to putting a deal together, I think we had to work harder because we didn't have the framework that we had now. Yeah. But there are many other benefits about having a framework, and probably we could have several podcasts on just that one subject. One thing I wanted to come back to you on, because I think I'd mentioned on one of our previous talks about a company that I was working with, and this has been ongoing for quite a few months, and I thought it'd be quite interesting to sort of reflect back and to give you an update on where we were. And you had met the company, and you had had a presentation from the business, and I think we all were agreed that it was very difficult to understand what they actually did. Mm-hmm. Lots and lots of information, detailed information in their
very
presentation.
Technical feature.
Very technical. Yes, they actually. It's a company that's operating in a hot area of the sector, which is one of the things that we're always looking for. Is being able to make an assessment on the market, the software sector market, and there are subsectors within that. What's hot, what's not. So they were in an area and very much potentially moving towards a very hot area. But when you sat in front of them and they presented to you, first of all, there were lots of different variations on the presentation, but it was really hard to understand. And it wasn't a pleasant experience sitting there and listening. There wasn't a story, there wasn't a controlled pitch. So we've been working with them, and this is right at the essence, I think, for so many companies when they need to really make a more powerful organization. We always talking about increasing the equity value. This section about competitive space. So many companies get it wrong, and it's hard. It's really hard, and it's about a number of different elements that need to come together to get it right. It is about being able to pitch your business, but to first of all understand who you are, what you do, and what you do best, and to be able to put that into a story that makes sense. And I say a story deliberately because stories are the best way to communicate. That's
I
something
agree.
it's bred into us.
You know what I think, Mark? I fully agree. By the way, I do the same when I look at sales process. I always go to the basic and I said, you need to fix your story first and all the rest will solve itself later on. You'll see it's a process thing.
Yes.
But isn't it, I think the hardest part for most companies I meet, and the same with the one we met, it's choices. They can't choose. They wanna be sure they hit every nail out there.
Yes.
So they're gonna say everything they have and it becomes a mess.
Yes. And they've also got a lot of information in their head. They're intelligent people, probably got good memories, and it tends to all come out onto the table when they meet somebody. And that doesn't help. You just overload your audience.
Yeah.
And I think you get some good examples. I don't know if you're a fan of TED Talks.
Yeah, absolutely. Love
And
them.
if you look at the top-rated TED Talks, predominantly, what is it? And I'm always looking for the common denominators. What is it that makes that TED Talk more attractive than this TED Talk?
It's simple, straightforward, funny, by the way, but it's
Yes.
a real story with emotion, if you think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it needs to be genuine. The person, you need to believe in that person. They need to perhaps to give a little bit away about themselves. Like probably a little bit like the discussions that we have. I mean, I found out that you have chickens in your office. I mean,
They're gone now. Please forgive me that. It's going to happen once, Mark. It's never going to happen again.
it adds characters, doesn't it? I mean, it's a little bit weird, but but it tells me a little bit about you. And I think also you're exposing yourself a little bit, not not physically exposing yourself, but you need to reveal a little bit more about yourself. But I think at the heart of it is a story. It's a story that at the beginning you've got a good opening and it attracts their attention. It grabs people's attention and it can flow. Because the other thing is a story is memorable. There's no other way of getting people to retain information. How often have you had meetings where you've had somebody just throw facts at you?
Yeah,
And then
all the time.
if you were trying to recall that and repeat that the next day, how much will we actually remember? It's a fraction, and then a week later, you probably it's minute the amount of information you remember. You might remember the fact that he had a bad tie on or something, but the information will have gone. But if you tell a story, we've all got stories in our head that were probably told to us when we were very, very small at school and preschool age that we can still tell to our children.
Absolutely. The thing that I'm always explaining in my lessons and when I help companies, and I actually spend a lot of time on it, I call it the one killer slide. The one image that's so clear that within 3 seconds you understand the whole value prop.
I'm really glad you mentioned that because it sort of brings me back to what I was saying about this company, is that we've progressed things, we've put together the narrative, we've got their marketing tagline, we've got the key sales messages, and this has been put into a PowerPoint presentation. And I'm always a little bit concerned because if you've got a group of people and that isn't their strength, even if you've got a fantastic PowerPoint presentation, they do tend to want to dabble. And you can have something it's a really nice finished piece of art almost, and they all want to put their fingerprints on it and mess it up. So I really was pleased with the results. So I sent it across to them, and I waited for a few hours, and I thought, oh no,
They're going to hate it.
Slide 10, we want to put all of these points in. Can you reduce the size of the font? I don't like that. I don't like that picture. No reason why. I just don't like that picture. All that sort of thing. Typically, it's just they want to cram it with more and more information. I got 2 emails back, one from the shareholder, one from the managing director. I love it.
Cool.
And I want to take this slide because I'm going to some meetings in the next few days, and these particular slides I want to take now. It wasn't even draft version, so it was a happy ending to my story, Michael. And that's the whole point of what I'm saying to here is it's a journey that you have to go through, and I think if you get it right, it makes so much difference. I would be prepared to sit and listen to their news story that they've got. It's interesting and it makes sense. And most of all, it brings the battle. You're always going to be in competition, but it brings the battle to the battleground where you are most likely to win. And
Absolutely.
that's one of the key concepts that I always bear in mind when we're doing this is business is a battle, but you need to make sure that you fight that battle in the area where you are strongest. And I think a lot of people, you've got your head down on the business, you're looking at all of the different aspects that you're juggling with, and some of those key concepts you can miss out from. But if you can get it in place, it can make a really big difference. And that's what it's about, is making that change difference.
Fully aligned. By the way, there is a nice, for our listeners, if you want to see a picture of like a one killer image that you get it straight away, there's a company called Drift.com. What they do is a chatbot, and they actually if you just go to the landing page, you scroll down like 10 centimeters, you see the one picture, and you will understand like in a second what these guys do. All right? Just to have a look at it.
What was the name of that company?
Drift.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm going to avoid spelling it because my native English is not that strong.
No, that's fine. So is it drift.com?
Yeah.
Drift.com. Okay. I'll go and have a look at that one. That will be interesting.
Yeah. So, and if our listeners have those images, you can always send them over. I'm always really looking to find these really strong pictures. I would love to see them, and just send them over, and we will comment them for sure.
That's another aspect that I've been discussing this week, because we're looking actually at putting together some training videos in helping companies with their communication, because communication obviously is important when you're looking at a sales prospect, but communication is also really vital for us when we're looking to sell a business, or when we're looking to find investors, when you're looking out to find buyers, because I've seen that process run so many times. And I've also met a lot of buyers, and I think you've just had information thrown at you. It's a lot that you've got to take on board, and I think it's very easy to overload people, even when you're talking about selling something that's going to be sold for millions and millions. There is a limit to the amount of information that somebody can take on one time, and I think the more that we can make this visual, the better, because our mind is very good at taking on, visual images and interpreting those. And it was quite interesting what you're saying about having one slide that tells you all about that business. Yeah. It's
also because one of the things that I am strong advocate and believer in is that you need to, whatever you're selling, even if it's a service or a software, you need to make the intangible tangible. Because it's hard. You look at this thing and what's going to do? That one slide, that one image is going to make it tangible. That's what it does. And that's why it's so hard, because you need to make choices, and it's going to be simplifying things. And that's why people find it so hard, because you get to the core, to the essence of what do you do now actually, right? And that's a tough one.
Yes. And visually is also the way. I remember listening to a course by, I think he's an American, called Kevin Trudeau, I think his name was, and he was a memory expert, and he could remember, I don't know, 6 packs of cards. And the way that he did it was he used the power of the mind with visual elements. So he would have a street that he knew very well, and he would place the cards in different positions along that street. So as they were thrown at him, and then to recall it, he would just walk back down that street. But it was all about visual, make it so very, very visual, which is actually the opposite of a lot of PowerPoint presentations you see, or any form of presentation, where you end up with a group of people looking at a screen of text, and they're just reading it while the person presenting is reading it. How many times have you seen that?
That's a real mess.
Yeah. So what do you do to sort that out when you've got somebody wanting to do that? Because it's very difficult.
I see that a lot. I get a lot of these presentations, and then I just kill them. I said, what you do is you feel insecure. You just put all the text you're going to say on the slide. So I want you to get rid of the text, keep 3 words. What you going to do? And I tell you, things change dramatically.
Wow.
Also, the other thing that you will see wrong is I rarely see the cause and effect in a slide. So they show something, but they expect me to process it. And I get really angry on that. I said, no, you are the expert. You will process this for me. So tell me, that's a problem. How do you see this?
Explain that. Explain that to me. What do you mean by that? So what are they showing? And what are you saying?
Imagine you're selling a software. You're selling a software, and what you do is you show this big, massive dashboard.
Yep.
And then you say, "Hi, this is our software. What we do is dashboarding. Look at all these fantastic analytics." And then I'm looking at it and think, "Yep, okay, that's it, nice." What if they would have not have done that, but they would have just taken out? They would have the same image. And then they would take out one of the images and they make a circle around and said, you see this one here? Because of this one analytics dashboard, this one picture we show you here, the companies actually increased their OPEX by 8%. It decreased, I have to be careful, decreased their OPEX by 8% because this is the analysis we have done for them. You see? Cause and effect. And people don't do that. I'm like, come on, do it.
Yes. We can do this for you.
Yep.
That's that sort of approach.
And it's bam in your face, no escape. Nobody can deny 10% cost reduction in OPEX. I mean, that's what you want, right?
Yeah, you're talking about old-fashioned features and benefits in a way.
Yeah, but it's always the same thing. Eh? We will remain humans with the same problems unless one day the singularity arrives. But that's not for this podcast, Mark.
No, definitely not. And actually saying that, I'm just looking at our clock. We've just gone over the 30 minutes. So our time is just about up. So I think we should thank people for listening. We are now out there on iTunes, and I think we're going to go out onto a lot of other platforms over the next few weeks. We're even talking about having a LinkedIn group where we're going to put up some articles about how you can download it onto different devices. And also in the future, maybe people can suggest some topics. But as you can tell, I think well, definitely Michael has. I like the way you came roaring out of that room today, straight into a topic. That was good. Yeah.
Let's fix it now.
Yeah, that was really fired up. I've been sorting this out today. Yeah. So I'd like to say this was a Boss It podcast, Unlocking the Software Industry, One Conversation at a Time by Michael Humblet and Mark Edwards. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, like, comment and share. Thank you and goodbye. How's that for an ending? Do you like that?
Very good. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Michael. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Cheers.